In this video, I'm going to quickly show you how to paint one of these eggs. I'm using Posca markers and a pencil, and I'm going to copy one of these designs, this one here actually. We're going to copy this pattern here using a pencil and Posca markers. So the first thing that I'm going to do is draw a grid with a pencil. I'm going to divide the egg into 4 and then into 4 again, until I have 8 sections clearly divided with pencil marks. Then I'm going to divide the egg in half again with a line running across the belly, and you can see that it's got some stripes down the center, so I'm going to repeat that with my pencil as well. And your lines don't have to be straight, you can see mine are a bit wobbly. So there's the 3 lines. Now we're going to do the flower at the top, and you can see that each petal has got like a scallop. So it's kind of like a heart shape. And then on the other side as well. There we go. Now I'm going to do the scallops around the belly of the egg. And that's quite simple. It's literally just 2 scallop shapes inside each of those divisions that we made earlier. And the scallops have got like a little outline around them. Now I'm going to do the leaves. So I'm just adding 1 leaf on either side of each stem, and the stems are actually the lines that we originally drew to divide the egg, and I'm going to do that on both sides. This is obviously sped up. I don't draw this quickly. There we go. That's starting to look really pretty. Now I'm going to get my Posca markers, and you've just got to be careful with the Posca markers because they dry pretty quickly, but just don't touch them while you're using them. They dry in just a few seconds. I usually do all my outlines first, and then I fill in the shapes. And they give a really lovely solid fill, so there's no streaking with a Posca marker. They're fantastic to use, and I've used them on eggs for years and years. So here you can see I'm doing the outline first of the scallop petals, and then I'm going around the circle. It's just so that you get nice join lines, so you don't get sort of one colour bleeding into the other. And then I'm just filling it all in. And then I'm doing the stems, and I'm just going up and down a few times just to get a slightly thicker line. And like I said, they do dry pretty quickly, but you can see the way that I'm holding it. I'm being very careful so as not to touch any of the freshly painted lines because they are still wet. And then I'm doing the little leaves. And you can see that I'm not being particularly neat about it, and that's because we've got outlines to come. And the outlines that we're going to do in a white Posca marker are going to neaten everything up. So the leaves are I'm really just filling them in and just colouring them in. So by the time I'm doing these leaves, the flowers have already dried at the top and bottom. So you can see how quickly that happens. There we go. Now I'm going to do the scallop belly band, I guess you could call it, around the middle. And I'm doing the top part in a light blue, and I'm going to do the bottom part in a different colour. Now I can't remember what size Posca marker this is, but the ones that I use for filling in shapes are quite thick, so you don't want to get super thin Posca markers except for the outlines. Everything else you want to get something with a pretty decent nib, otherwise it'll take you forever to fill in shapes. As you can see how quick, I know this is sped up, but you can see how quick it is to fill in shapes when you've got a marker that's got quite a thick nib on the end. Now the stripes down the center. And again, I'm not being overly neat with this. You don't really have to, because like I said, once we do the outlines, and I'm going to do the outlines in white, The other egg, the original egg that you saw, the outlines were in black, but this one we're going to do in white in a moment. So I'm just adding a little stripe outside that scallop shape in orange, and then on the other side as well. So I've got my Posca markers in different sized nibs. I've got quite thick ones for like the blues that you can see for filling in really chunky shapes, and sort of like a medium size for doing slightly smaller shapes. And then the one that I use for the outlines, which you'll see in a moment in the white, is quite fine. Not super fine, but it's finer than all the rest. Here it is. Now you can see what a massive difference it makes to add the white outline. It really transforms the egg. It really sort of wakes up all the colors, and suddenly the egg just becomes beautifully decorated. I think without the outlines it would look quite dull. And then you can add things like, because Posca markers look beautiful one color over the top of the other, so there's no blending. They're really opaque colors, and one color sits on top of another perfectly. So you can see where I did the little spots at the top, and I added the little white stripes on top of the red petals. They look fantastic. And I'm just about to add, here we go, the white stripes over the top of the blue. Doesn't that look great? Honestly, if you look at the top part of the egg and then the bottom part of the egg, it's completely different. And then we're going to just add some little fat spots, and then do the outlines of the three stripes. And again, if you can see, I'm not really fussed about being super neat. Honestly, don't worry if your lines are a little bit wobbly, because once you finish the egg, all those colors and all those patterns on it, that's what makes it look really beautiful. You're not going to be noticing that this line is crooked or that line is crooked. You just want to be decorating the egg completely. And here we go. Okay, that's the two eggs side by side. So one is done with about black outlines, one is done with the white outlines. And you can see that the design, the pattern is the same, but how different these eggs look. Now, admittedly, the egg on the left has got more leaves than the egg on the right, but that's okay. And everything else is pretty much the same, but they look completely different. It's wonderful. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you have some fun painting your own Easter eggs at home.